The Charity of the Week.
So all this week, our Charity of the Week is Mooinjer Veggey, which means little people and skilg in Manx. Is that correct, Juan?
Yes, I nearly. Yes, it is. Yes, very correct.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
So, do you know, normally we speak to Juan Christian about other charity things. We speak to him about Tough Mucker. We speak to him about music things. But in the past few years, you have been immersing yourself in the Manx language.
I've been trying to. So I started at Mooinjer Veggey in, I think it was April. But for years, as you know, we've been trying to learn Gaelic for a long time now. You're in year 3, level 3. I'm on like 1 and a bit, but we're getting there. And I mean, I love it personally. I love the challenge. We've just found out how much of a challenge it is. So, I mean, I love trying to learn Manx. I was never any good at languages at school, but I do love this, yeah.
There are more and more people speaking Manx, but there's something about meeting another Manx speaker that you just get a little fizz of excitement, don't you?
Yeah, it is nice. And once I don't know whether, even before I was taking lessons, when I had come to vaults, there was the usual guys that you know, like the shirts and everyone that would come in for the gigs, and they would always try and teach me a bit, and I had Brisha Kermode working with me. But then the odd person would come in, and it would be dead nice, because one of the things that you find that you're encouraged to do when you learn Gaelic is to teach somebody something. So people would just find it as a great opportunity. Oh, you're interested. So then they pick up and then they try and teach you something. You forget it immediately. And then you see them again in the street. They go and you're like, ah. But
the pressure.
Yeah,
but
the pressure.
So now you've gotten to the point of not only obviously being part of this charity, being the project officer for Mooinjer Veggey, but you run a little podcast, which is this linked to Mooinjer Veggey as well?
Yeah, so one of my objectives in my role is to work with the likes of Culture Van and Bunskal and everyone to just make Manx a little bit more accessible in the communities. And this isn't a new thing. Nobody's reinventing the wheel. It's just that the more people that are doing it, the more traction it's going to get. On our board is Adrian Kane. Adrian Kane's written loads of books. He's taught hundreds and hundreds of people how to speak Manx. And one of the things that I pitched for my interview was very easy, go to in the house Manx, like Gaelic Thai. So I got told of this book called Cray Renuju, which I knew about, which means What Did You Do Today, which Adrian wrote for the parents of kids that go to Bunskal who may not have that much Manx at them. So I reached out to him. He's a very Fia Turuk Wunya. He's very busy. So he was really, really happy that I'd reached out to him, and me and him, we hang out now, and we put Cray Renuju on Spotify and Castbox, and it is a good giggle. And I also do a little thing with Brisha Kermode, which we're still in the works. We have one podcast up, it's called Manx and Me, and that's part of spreading, talking about culture and life on the Isle of Man and the language and how it affects you, and especially as fluent speakers and not so fluent speakers. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Well, I have to say, listening to that podcast you do with Adrian, yes, I have actually.
Which one?
My favourite one is the one on the beach.
Oh, where Adrian gets wooed
Error
on.
try. It's very good. Do go listen to it. I recommend anyone listen to it, whether you're a Manx speaker or not, because actually there's a large amount of it that's in English, because you are learning as you go through, and it's little phrases, little words, just little bits you can pick up, and it's great fun listening to the pair of you as well. Yeah,
we have one of the, when we sat down to talk about it, we said we wanted to make sure it's just fun to listen to regardless of what we say. We also agreed that we're allowed to go off on tangents, because I've listened to a lot of podcasts. One of my favourite ones is about ADHD with Paul Whitehouse. It's called ADHD and Me. Him and his wife. It's absolutely brilliant. And most of it isn't about ADHD. And that keeps you engaged because it's just fun. So we talk a little bit about history. We talk a little bit about our past lives and our experiences. And we always try and tie it around to, it always ends up falling into what we're talking about. So it's brilliant. So the one that down the beach is a very, very funny episode, actually. At least it makes me giggle.
It is really good fun. Yeah. And all this is part of, sort of what you're doing with regards to Mooinjer Veggey, which, I mean, really, Mooinjer Veggey starts with very young kids. You talked about Pos and Cloy, and then you go into the school itself, which is sort of ground up learning with Manx, isn't it? Yeah,
I think when I wasn't obviously part of it in 1996 when it started, but that was the objective, was early years learning. And what that does is it normalises it. So if the parents are a little bit interested, or, especially with our Pos and Cloy groups, you don't have to be a speaker. there's people there. They teach you the songs. They teach you some colours. You do cross currents. You're going to do hop tune stuff this year. So it isn't just about the language. It's about engaging with the island around us, which I think sometimes we forget. We're surrounded by place names and little habits like RAT and the ferry bridge and stuff that I think are kind of just like fallen by the wayside again. So to just engage in a really, really, really easy way at a young age just helps kind of normalise it a bit. And I think tradition and culture are important anyway. So, yeah.
And you know what? We're quirky at the end of the day, and that's something to celebrate, quirky, isn't it?
Well, certainly.
Exactly. And as parents as well, we should say, when you're bringing your children to any of these groups, you don't have to be a Manx speaker yourself.
No, not at all. Most of it's in, if not all of it's in English, especially at Podd and Cloy, because you kind of, it can be scary learning a language, and we're very aware. I think every single person that speaks a bit of Manx knows that it can be, maybe put the frighteners on them, and we try to make it as accessible and easy and unterrifying as possible. So you come and you learn, like especially if you're going to Podd and Cloy, you learn at your own pace, and it's really easy. It's colours, it's a few nursery rhymes, and the guys do great jobs.
Good way to pick it up.
It is a brilliant way to pick it up, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well when we were chatting before, I just said quirks there. You've got an exhibition coming up to do with the quirks.
Oh, yeah. So W.T. Quirk, he was a poet and an artist and a writer, and he was featured in Mona's Isle, and he did loads of private work. But how it turned out that this actually happened is I worked with his great-granddaughter. And when I worked at Abbotswood, because I did a little period at Abbotswood, and I worked on one of the wards, and I looked after his daughter's husband. So I loved that connection. So I reached out to the family, and I proposed that we would use Quirk's legacy to try and inspire some local artists who would produce some work. We'd create the exhibition, and we would auction these works off as a fundraiser for Mooinjer Veggey, and it was just brilliant. I think one person said no because they couldn't do it. So we got 18 of the island's top artists doing it. I couldn't be more happy, and the family have been super supportive. And the great thing about Quirks is it's poetry and his art and his stories. Some of it's in dialect, but he talks very much in layman's terms, and he's very straightforward, and it's very accessible work. And he wasn't that, I think he must have passed away maybe like 1972 or something, and he was a teacher at Vic Road, so people still remember him. In fact, one of the artists actually has one of his paintings in their loft. Amazing. So hopefully they'll drag that out. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think and the great thing about this is it's not necessarily about the language, but it hopefully will pull some people into the language, but it just opens people up to the island, and how if one person's passionate about it, that really is infectious. So if you've got one person, suddenly now we've got 18, not saying that they weren't passionate anyway, but they are definitely passionate now because they've got really, really involved in it. And hopefully that'll just spread out, and, the ripple effect, we call it. And that's kind of what we can hope for.
And then you've got a pathway as well for these kids that are going to these groups too, because they can go on to schools, to primary schools, to high schools. Yeah. And of course there's teaching all through the schools now of Manx.
Yeah, there is. So we've got the Podd and Cloy, then it goes to the Mooinjer Veggey Nursery in St John's, which will hopefully lead on to Brunskol, which then leads on to high school, most of which I think go to QE2, where they teach some of the lessons in Gilg. But they also, so my stepdaughter, she's at Castle Rush, and she chose to do Gilg because she comes to my lessons with me, and I think there's quite a few in her class. I think it's taught in all of the high schools now.
It is now,
It's taught in all of the primary schools, and it's brilliant because it needs to be treated just like any other language, really. We can be guilty of maybe being a little bit nervous about talking about Gaelic, but it's just as important as French and German and Spanish and Latin. So I don't see why the kids shouldn't be learning it. And Verity loves it. She comes home. She has one of my old school friends as a teacher, so she comes home and she tells me about what he was up to during the day. So it's quite funny, You get the skeet, and she gets a bit of skeet as well, which I'm not happy about. But
and I think some people might sort of miss the point with it, because I know, like you're saying, it's just as important as French or German. Now, we're not suggesting that you're going to go off into the world and speak Manx everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Of course you're not. It's not about that. It's about the sort of connection to where you live and the people and your history. I mean, I love the little bit of information that came in your email, which says the voices that shaped us. elders must not be forgotten and the voices yet to come must be nurtured. I think that's sort of what it's all about, really, isn't it?
That definitely is for me. Because the language is just another part of that. It's a very important part, which is why for years and years and years, I've tried to pick it up, and now I'm immersed in it a lot more. So it is becoming a little bit easier. But it's on our doorstep. It's like most people have houses that have Manx names, and they may not really truly understand what they are. The estates are all Manx. Like I grew up in Clogvane, but when I was a kid, I knew that meant white stone, and I knew that Ballasalla was place of the willows. And maybe people don't know that anymore, but the language brings you a lot more into that. And some people would say, well, it's no use, as you said, because you're not going to use it in that many places. But there's Scottish Gaelic schools in Nova Scotia. People speak Irish and Irish Gaelic in America, and if you're a fluent Manx speaker and you bump into somebody in America, there is a chance that you will use it somewhere else. That there is just that chance, but it's you're never going to speak French everywhere or German. So I'd love it if people just did, instead of going, I'm going to use Duolingo to learn Spanish today. Oh, actually, I'm going to go and dig out a Manx lesson and actually go and learn it in person with somebody, because it's doing the same thing for you.
There's so many resources.
Yeah, it's giving you that delayed gratification, really good sense of accomplishment when you get through your levels. And it's a lovely bit of social networking. Like, we have a right giggle at the lessons. It really is fun.
It is good fun. Yeah. And also, of course, it's brilliant for your brain.
It's dead good for your brain, yeah.
It's good for
Which
us,
we
hasn't
found out. It stretches your brain. Which, I mean, I'm quite a practical person, but I can deal with systems and learning things with my hands and repetition. But to learn a language is just digging in that part of your brain that you may not have used since you were like 13, 14. So it is really satisfying when it suddenly all just drops, and then you read something on Facebook and you understand it without having to translate it. It's a really lovely sense of accomplishment.
It really is.
It's great. Yeah.
And most of us aren't really doing many lessons as such anymore in our advancing years, and so this is a way to get that feeling again of thinking, oh, I did this, I learned this, I've accomplished this, which is great.
And it's a big, it's not a big barrier but as you get older, it's something that you might think, oh, but I'm too nervous, but the satisfaction's, it's really good.
Well, it's clearly important work that you're doing at Mooinjer Veggey, and we're glad you're doing it. Just remind people where they can go to find out more about it all.
So you can go on the Mooinjer Veggey Facebook, or you can just drop me an email at projects@moinjerveggey.org.im.
And where can we find your podcast, Ewan?
Oh, yes, on Spotify. So if you put into Spotify, what did you do today? That'll bring you up. We've got 12 episodes on there. And as we said, it's dead straightforward. Start off at number 1, work your way up. Not that it gets that complicated by 12, but I think it's just better to start at the beginning. And we're very chuffed with it. We think it's very good.
Crerannu Ewan?
Tammy failed me driving test.
Shernay, Guramayad Wunya.
The Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.